So we'll kind of parry the whole boxing conversation to, I'm obviously very excited. My Ultimate Boxing Trainer is now available on the Jeremy Scott Fitness app, along with your 1,000 plus other workouts and programs. Links for that will be in the show notes as well. That has been up until this point, content exclusively available on my app or on YouTube with ads, but you can get it ad-free at the JSF app. So we wanted to also, introduce boxing to your audience. I'll kind of hand it over to you here to kind of, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to get my content on your platform. It means a lot. It's an honor, and I hope they really enjoy it. So what questions do you have for me in regards to helping your people best use that content?
Yeah, I mean, like, for one, like, I wasn't going to do it. So, like, it's not something I can do. And it's so, like, detailed in, like, every piece of it. So we have it in there. It's probably been in the app for, I don't know, like 3 weeks at this point, and people do it. I built it into some of the weekly workouts too, just to kind of spoon feed to people, but obviously it lives in there. I guess for somebody like in the outside, like, because I'll share it on Instagram and I'll throw it out places, and people like, well, Jeremy, I'm not a boxer. I don't want to be one. I don't have like all this equipment. And I'm like, it's not what it is. Like, I probably watched 80% of it. And a lot of it is not even like boxing. I don't know if that's the wrong way to put it, but there's a lot of pieces that even go into getting you ready to just go through the footwork. If you want to talk through like kind of how you set up the program, because essentially I have basically the 10 video series plus this heavy bag from hell workout capped off at the very, very end.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing, and this is what's so difficult. This is what's difficult about it, right? And by the way, this is with anything that you want to do in life. When there are learning curves, it means that the beginning sucks. You oftentimes don't want to do a lot of the stuff involved with it, but there is this huge payoff moment at the end, which not only is this huge reward for you physically, mentally, spiritually, but it's now something you can do for the rest of your life and build upon. So the stark contrast to boxing for cardio is a Peloton bike that you pay $2,000 for and you sit on. Look, I know you're a big Airdyne guy, and that obviously has the advantages of having the arms too. And I think it absolutely has its purpose for some people, for most people. But at the end of the day too, the last thing I want to have someone do who's sitting all day long is get their cardio in or their workout in sitting. And by the way, you guys rarely do exclusive assault bike workouts. It tends to be finishers or starters or part of like a medley. Where I see your content, and because to just do an Airdyne only workout, unless it's just like the 1 minute sprint test, it sucks. It's boring, and that's the thing about it. Like with boxing, as it's being skill based, it's on your feet. It involves, in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of anti-aging, which is pivoting feet and rotating hips. This is like, if you've ever played sport, it's the foundation of everything, right? The ability to pivot and rotate your hips, change direction. And then also we're talking about low impact, fast twitch fiber training. Every year after 30, those are the fibers we lose. The speed, the power, the reaction speed. And to take that to the next level here, it's just a personal thing. I've had arthritis in both knees since I was 19 years old. My left knee now is at a point where the arthritis has become exponential, and it's just, there's daily inflammation in there. And that's just where I'm at. I'm probably going to have to get it replaced. But I can still push myself to the limit with the heavy bag, the sled, and obviously the pool has been great as well. Weighted walking. So again, like, it's something I can still do with my condition. And that's huge. That's something you can't overlook. From the standpoint of just aesthetics, if I hit the heavy bag once or twice a week, I can have a physique at this age of 41 and a half that is in the 99.9 percentile of the world. And it really does. It puts finishing touches on your trunk. It really does. The angles that you create with not just the straight punches, the hooks, going head, body, all of that trunk rotation, the hip rotation. in terms of what it can do for your heart rate. And by the way, the heavy bag work, which you hope to get to at some point, because the way I look at shadow boxing, it's your body weight work. And by the way, that's where it all starts, because that's the muscle memory. That's what gets your nervous system on autopilot with the basic punches and footwork, which we'll talk about. And the heavy bag is when you start adding weights to it, right? Like if you've ever done a heavy bag workout before and you do it, the next day it feels like you did like heavy barbell work or weighted dips and pull-ups. It creates that level of muscle damage with the cardio, with the fact that it's a full body workout. And again, it's easy on your lower body joints. And I can't overemphasize that enough as like an aging athlete. Like the road work is out. That's the benefit of the sled, is I can tap into some of that stuff without all the eccentric stress and the high impact. So there's that piece of it too. And again, there is this gap. Yeah, I can't just put you on a bike like or I can't just put you in that chair like Neo and just give you kung fu. Okay, like I wish we were there. But by the way, like, would you really want that? I know a lot of people would say yes, sure. I'd love the ability to just do kung fu, but like it will not have you will not have a connection to it. Just like your connection with basketball, right? By the way, very similar nature to boxing, and why a lot of NBA players train boxing on the off season, because of the similar natures of hand-eye coordination, footwork. Like boxing, you mentioned like the footwork. If you don't get the footwork right, you can't properly balance yourself to throw and land punches or make continuous punches. And you got to go through the shoot, pass, dribble phase with this type of skill. And can't get around it. And that's the earlier parts of the workouts. You know, there's 10 of these workouts, not including the heavy bag workout from hell, which, you know, we're talking 1,000 plus calories in an hour, easy on that heavy bag workout. But all these other workouts you can do with just your body weight, or if you want to hold light pair of 1 to 2 pound hand weights or a band to get some intensity, you can do that as well. But at the end of the day, there are 6 basic punches, and there's, you know, 3 basic ways to move. The 6 punches, you've got your 1 is your jab, 2 is your overhand right or cross, the 3, and that goes from a straight arm punch to a bent arm, 90-degree angle lead hook. 4 is the rear hook. And the only difference between the hook and the uppercut is the positioning. It's the same arm position. So a big part of that, like, this is what I do. Like when I went to go learn boxing from a pro who is, you know, he's got one of the best leading fitness education on YouTube. It wasn't as helpful as it was for me to just teach it to myself, because, you know, when you go work with an Olympic boxer, they're so far beyond like he can't even remember the beginning when he learned how to box when he was 11. But so he's showing me things and I'm like, bro, like I didn't even know what is this? Like we're skipping some key steps here. So we really start just focusing at slower speeds, just placing the punches. And it does help, like, to have a mirror so you can see how it looks. And if you look at your brain like a camera, all your brain's trying to do in the early stages with boxing or any new skill, it's taking pictures. And once you take those pictures at slow speeds with good form, it's like a dimmer switch. We just ramp up the speed and intensity, and then we add complexity to the skills. From a footwork standpoint, you basically are in a staggered shuffle, right? So a classic shuffle, you're square on. The difference with boxing is we have to create the stagger so that there's a lead arm and a trail arm. And the lead arm is basically this is the arm that's going to be kind of setting the distance. It's going to be the one you use to more quickly attack because it's closest to the opponent. And your trail arm will tend to be one that you can generate more power off of when it comes to the straights, right? The overhand right, the Jake Paul punch that, unfortunately, I feel if it comes down the pipe and hits Mike Tyson, it might be nap time. The Deontay Wilder punch, right, coming straight down the pipe. You know, much like with basketball, when you're shuffling, you can't let these feet come too close together. And if you let them cross, it can be problematic, right? Because you lose your balance, stability, you can't react, you'll fall. So it's about initially creating the muscle memory of constantly keeping the feet spaced properly, where there's a line between the feet. For the YouTube people, I'm showing it right now, where you've got a line between your feet and these feet are never coming too close together, so you have the ability to always punch and move and react. So we go through the linear footwork, the lateral footwork, then we basically get into we learn the basic punches, one punch at a time, right? You can't, like, people want to go right to a body weight circuit, but there's actually a lot of value in saying, okay, I'm going to work on the push-up today, the squat tomorrow, the hanger pull-up tomorrow, and then maybe at the end of the week, I'll put these together in a circuit because I've downloaded each skill, now I'm putting them together. This is especially important if you've never boxed before in your life, because again, what boxing will do, and this is what it did to me, it will expose every one of your weaknesses. In particular, breathing, coordination. Like if you can't dance, boxing's going to be a little bit tough for you early on. And even if you can dance, it's a new skill. But it's basically like, what is boxing? It's dance fighting. What's all combat sports or martial arts? It's a artistic interpretation of how to do combat with styles and poses and unique approaches, right? So it actually has a dance component to it, but you're not going to get most over 40 guys from the Midwest to dance. But if you can get into box and do good boxing footwork, well, they're getting what they need anyway. Because as you see, as the footwork progresses and stuff like that, where you're punching and moving. So what I'm trying to say is there are so many layers to this. It's progressive. It's not like a treadmill. It's not like a bike where you get on it. And I even saw, like, I don't know if you've seen these ads. There was a new stationary bike that can lean this way. And this activates your obliques 35% more to get shredded at home. And it's like, okay, so I'll give you that. Now bikes can lean this way and that way. But when you start putting these combinations together, bro, like when you can put together a good 5 or 6 punch combination, it feels like it's a rush. And you can hear the pop on the bag. And by the way, is any physical fitness program complete without self-defense? This used to be baked into what we did. Like, you got to learn how to use your hands. Like, someone comes into this house, I'm not saying I'm going to win every fight, but this is not going to be a passive altercation. All right, I train for this. I train for these opportunities to protect my family, protect myself. And then I think the other piece that has to be discussed as well. They use boxing for patients with Parkinson's. It literally helps reconnect and reverse some of the brain damage that comes with that particular disorder. The shaking, the tripping. When I would go and get my initial lessons, there was a group of people with Parkinson's getting a class, and this was a big part of what they do every week as their therapy. So in this program, by the way, there's like a video game vibe where I think about month 3 or 4, where you do reaction drills. So each punch has a number. I just went through, like, the 1 is the jab, the 2 is the cross, etc. And then just to be able to call out and react when I say 1, you got to jab quick, 2, cross quick. And then when you talk about combinations, 1, 2, 3. So you're reacting in real time and you're building reaction speed. And this is, by the way, this is what leads to injuries. Someone's out walking their dog and their dog reacts to another aggressive dog or a sound or a car, and they fall and break a hip because their body has not been trained recently to react to stimuli. So, I threw a lot at you. What specifically would you want me to flesh out more? Like, and by the way, like, I'm telling you right now, bro, like, if you got just the basic proficiency skills and adding the heavy bag to your arsenal, it would be, I'm telling you right now, it is just like the sled for me. It's when I am in a tight corner, I know I can set the countdown clock for 20 minutes and I can just start hitting the heavy bag, and I always come out better on the other end. No warm-up required. I mean, it's full body. I think you'd love it. I really do.
Well, I mean, I think with the program, like, when you look at it too, for people who maybe are like, well, Jeremy, I already do this and I do this. Again, I'm not against, like, if you want to ride a fucking Peloton, go crazy. But if you sit in, flexion all day, to sit in more flexion and never be in hip extension, I don't think that's going to do anybody any good. I don't think that. I think if you realize like how tight your quads and your hip flexors and TFL and psoas and everything becomes by just doing the same repetitive shit over and over and over again, you wouldn't do it. And usually you pay the price at some point. But the program, like, even if you don't want to, hey, I don't want to be a world class boxer, you can just sprinkle this in like a day a week. And to me, I'm like, even if you're like, well, if you have no interest in like ever boxing or ever like even punching someone, which you may have to at some point in your life, just the mobility piece alone and just the stability of how you move and the dynamic way that you're moving is something that you don't do every day. I always tell people, I'm like, you walk forward all day. You rarely ever walk backwards. Rarely do you ever laterally shuffle. Most people never do lateral lunges. Most people never do skater hops. Most people never even step up laterally. Like, there's no movement whatsoever other than just forward, sit down, and we might turn slightly. But again, it's not like you're doing fucking spin moves in the grocery store, unless you're like a psychopath. So I think for most people, just knowing you could do it one day a week over the course of like 10 weeks and just cycling it through that way, or if it was twice a week or whatever, I think this replacing, even if to me, honestly, for most people, if you don't have some dedicated tissue work and mobility routine, I think if you're a normal, just stiff type person who hits the gym a couple days a week, throwing this in once a week would kind of check a lot of those boxes right off the bat. And it's probably way more fun than the forced mobility shit you would have to do.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because especially the earlier workouts, I would approach this as off-day mobility cardio. And by the way, we do heavy work on hip rotation, because if you, and this is part of the thing too, like, how can you love boxing or MMA or combat sports and not know at least like how to do the basics of it? Because, by the way, when you do you think that you and I would enjoy the NBA as much as we did if we didn't grow up playing basketball?
No.
And by the way, as now we can actually watch and truly appreciate what we see, because we're like, wow. And you can still dunk, but like, my dunks don't look like Anthony Edwards' dunks, right? Like, or you see an incredible shot that like a casual person won't even. I've been in rooms where like someone does something amazing and they don't even respond, because they have no concept about like the artistry involved in a fadeaway or a step back three. But what I'm trying to say is, you will appreciate your viewing experience as a fan way more when you learn the basics of what you're watching. It's just that's kind of baked into it too. But these were designed to be like the ideal off-day, like cardio, mobility, active recovery workouts, and especially in the earlier stages when things are done at a slower, more methodical pace, more about stability, mobility, because you've got to get the hips open enough to create the internal, external rotation, so you're not shoulder punching. Because that's not only will you not turn any power and look like an ape out there, but you're going to be then prone to, especially if you use a heavy bag, you're going to hurt your shoulders. And you watch all these top fighters. There's only one guy that I can think of that didn't punch with his legs, and that's George Foreman, who, by the way, I saw him working the heavy bag the other day at 74. And this guy, like, the bag still, the whole room shakes still. Hardest puncher ever. I think the only guy that could have stopped a prime Mike Tyson was George Foreman, just because of his size, and he punched even harder than Mike Tyson. He didn't have as much power, but he has huge hands, bro. And like, you can just see like these punches, just, it's almost like he was using like only 6-ounce gloves when he'd throw a punch. The way they impacted people, like they were just like, remember the video game? It's like the damage from a George Foreman punch would take your meter way down fast. But and this is the part that you mentioned, overuse injuries. This is the biggest mistake if you learn how to box. Don't allow them to tell you, no, we're only going to work in one stance, because we want you to perfect this stance. You do that, and immediately you will notice, like, for example, if you only do if you're right-handed, you only go orthodox, you are going to develop a hip flexor and lower back QL problem on the right side. Guaranteed. And that's the beauty of this too. The way we teach it, you'll end up as good in southpaw as you are in the orthodox stance. Orthodox meaning traditional right hand, left shoulder forward. Southpaw, just think Rocky. And when I started, your weak side, right? So I'm right-handed, I'm in southpaw. What you're going to be missing immediately is rotation on this lead hip. So you start to throw like you can just see, like when I slip, so someone's punching and I slip it, get ready to throw a hook. When I go to the other side, it isn't as naturally. I'm a little bit stiffer on that rotation. So we help you with that so that, again, you can punch from both stances, which, by the way, that was one of Mike Tyson's signatures. He would, did I send you this video? I did, yeah. It's a video where Tyson goes from orthodox to southpaw, back to orthodox, and then he finishes in southpaw before he knocks someone out who was bigger reach. But again, his footwork and his complete skill set of being able to shift between stances was the difference, beyond the fact that you're going to avoid overuse injuries from training boxing, but also you can fix a hip or a low back problem that is currently there or that bothers you from other activities by training both, right? Because again, we're not just straight punching, it's the hooks and it's, as they call them, the rounds, that opens up hip and spinal rotation. And by the way, like I've even gotten into the shoulder benefits. What is the serratus anterior called? The muscle that the Rocky IV muscle, threaded right here by the wrist. What's that called? The nickname for it.
I don't know.
It's called, the serratus is called the puncher's muscle.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, it's called the puncher's muscle because it is specifically and exceptionally developed in boxers. Because what is a punch? A proper punch, one that isn't stiff, that goes all the way, extends, it involves scapular protraction. So your scapular mobility will go off the charts. And, so, which is very important for shoulder health performance. So I can't say enough about it. And again, I think where people make a mistake with it, if it's the only thing you're going to do, you're probably more likely to get bored with it. I would look at it as something you add in, and then as your competency builds, and just like with any basic workout, you might be bored doing an entry-level plank circuit, right? Basic plank, side plank, bridge, hollow body hold. It's not super exciting, but if we don't do those right, how can we add in the plank and reach and twist, or the alternating arm leg front plank, or the hollow body rocks and rolls? Like all the fun stuff comes off of the foundation. And then it does get really, really fun. People that hate it in the beginning, this is now the most requested workouts we get at thedailybj.com. They can't get enough of it, especially when they add the heavy bag into the equation, because this is maybe the most important part, man, the mental health, the stress relief. Just, I don't know who you need to visualize that bag to be at the end of the day, but it's a much healthier release of all the bad demons or juju you have in your body from stress at work, stress in life. And, it doesn't punch you back. That's another piece of it too. You get all the benefits of boxing without the brain damage.
No, and I think for people, obviously you'll start and you realize like, hey, you suck for sure. Your footwork is probably not great. It's a lot to learn. I go, but it's a new skill too. And for people, just the general public who sit majority of the day and we don't move enough, like that's my whole thing is just moving around. Like just move your body around and not always in the same constant, I guess, plane of motion. Like we're always doing the same shit. So I go, so to unglue tight hips, which typically means you have a tight, stiff low back, and to get your shoulders moving and get your entire spine, but your thoracic spine moving too through space, you just will feel better, I think. And it's just a more fun way to do, essentially that base level mobility work. Like I have people in the app already who are like, oh man, I need to work on they don't know what to call it, but essentially shin boxes, because they can't do a shin box. Even they struggle with even like a baseball bat getting up, which just lets you know where people are at. Yet people want to jump into these like super, I guess crazy advanced workouts, and they don't even have the basic mobility to get into the postures to do the exercises in the first place. So it fixes a lot of things that people have probably never fixed, but just in a more detailed kind of fun way, if you can frame it that way in your brain, and you're learning something that's completely new, and you will feel better, and you'll have increased mobility, increased range of motion, which typically means, depending on how you train, more hypertrophy, you'll just look better, move better, feel better. But you have to build it from the beginning. And this is more fun than just, again, I'll set a clock and do mobility for 60 minutes. I don't give a shit because I'll work through all the stuff. I go, but that's me. A normal person has zero chance of doing that. So if you can kill two birds with one stone, this is what I see this is kind of perfect for.
And by the way, I think a lot of times people confuse the word boredom for their general lack of focus, because there's no shortage of people that go running for an hour, but some of those people would say, oh, this is too boring for me. This 20-minute workout where it changes, literally, it's a new drill every minute or two, is boring. No, what it means is you like to run for an hour because it requires no focus. By the way, mindless workouts are fine. The beauty of, though, once this becomes a skill, is it can end up becoming mindless for you. Sometimes I'll do a dedicated workout where every round I'm changing it, like in the heavy day workout from hell. And then sometimes I just go out there and I freestyle, and I don't know what I'm going to do. But because of all these combinations and movements and are already in there, it can unlock, just like anything. Freestyle becomes where you take this to a whole new level. Where, by the way, like, this is all of it. Jeremy and I share all the stuff we do because it's a business. It's how we make a living, all that stuff. But we both know that ultimately the only way this will ever be something that you really love, that becomes part of your DNA, if what we do is we empower you enough to create ownership in your fitness, where you start to experiment and make your own shit too. We're not saying you end up doing all your stuff on your own, because, again, I think the biggest value that you and I provide is we take the time and effort to put stuff together for you. Not that you necessarily can't do it. You have guys, I have guys and gals who follow, they can make their own workouts. They've been doing it long enough, but they're maybe not as skilled, or they can't do it as fast, or they're too busy to find the time because of all their extra commitments. So they don't do this for a living. But that's what you hope to get to with any skill, right? It starts structured and then eventually becomes so good for you that you can end up kind of doing your own thing and having fun, like a dance, like going out and shooting hoops and not knowing what's going to happen for an hour. And by the way, I gave you the heavy day workout from hell, which maybe I'll wait till the end now, because if people want to jump ahead and go to the hardest options, sometimes that's good too, because if you struggle with it, just know it's because, okay, I've made a choice. I'm not going to develop any foundation here, but you'll still get a great workout. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want, sometimes structure gets in the way of progress, because if it's too slow and too methodical. By the way, some people need to go through it that way. Someone who maybe is more athletic, better teaching themselves or picking up new movements, that workout isn't in of itself progressive. It starts with the basics, and by round 15, you're throwing a 6-punch combination with lateral movement. So it gets pretty advanced by the end, and maybe you can only get 3 of the first 5 rounds. So the last thing I'll say to that too is, I know a lot of your people, they golf, they play tennis, maybe they're in a softball league, all rotational. Pickleball, that's a big one out here in the desert. What those are rotational sports that boxing will make you better at. You're going to develop mobility through the hip and thoracic spine that'll translate into, you still have to hit the ball. But if you're missing that, especially on the other side, because people only golf one way. I don't want to get into how bad that is for you from that standpoint, but at least the boxing side of it, training both sides and both patterns. Like, if you think about it, you only throw a punch as an orthodox, you're only driving hip rotation one way. So the other side is getting completely neglected. The other shoulder, by the way, gets stiff. So, that's going to cause pain when you squat. That's going to cause pain anytime you twist, pivot, rotate, do athletic stuff. So those things are missing big time in those aforementioned more popular, more accepted sports. But still, those all require skill. I guess the one thing about boxing is you can't really it's not as social, right? Golf, you go out with some buddies, you get hammered, you're in a golf cart. It's a fun thing. You're out in nature. Tennis, there's doubles, you get 4 people involved. It's a social thing. But maybe you use this as an opportunity to get together and do a boxing class, or you do, you get, I don't know. It isn't as naturally social. That's the thing about fighting. It's a very individual thing. It's you and yourself, or your sparring partner and training process, and it's the person you go across in the ring. In this case, we're talking for general fitness. There is a solo element to it that, there's no built-in social that isn't necessarily there.
No, but it's a blueprint to follow. So it allows you to essentially not be good in front of people for a long period of time if you choose to be. And it just to fix the imbalances and just get people moving in a way that they don't move and acquiring a new skill, because most people don't have the time for like discovery, like in the gym, to just create things like in the way that like we do. Like, again, like I do a lot of brainless stuff, like, but I can, even when I say that, like I can go in there and I can play with things. Like today I'll go in, because like Wednesdays I don't get as many steps in typically as the other days because I'm just walking around nonstop. And I'm like, I'll go in today and do mobility, and I'll just do some versions of sled pushing and pulling and carries. And that's pretty much it. And it might be the same sled push and pull the entire time, but probably not. And the same thing with the carries. It might be farmers, it might be suitcase, it might be rack carries, it might just be, who knows, I might just make up shit. I'll grab, a sandbag instead of a dumbbell, or I'll grab a kettlebell and I'll hold it this way. Like I'll just play around with it because like I have the time to do it, where a normal person really doesn't do that. And they won't think of things in this kind of dynamic frame of mind. And so this program essentially does that a whole hell of a lot easier. And that's the last thing I'll say too, is just for people, just moving around and just doing something like consistently, like you'll be fine. I just think people, that's why our programs exist. So you do have a plug and play, but you don't have to be married to it. You can do pieces of it if you like, and you can marry pieces together. I just think the consistency of doing stuff that's not always the exact same forever, like, and has some variance to it, is the key for most people. It keeps you excited to do it, but it keeps you, just doing it, over the long term.
Yeah, man. Like, and by the way, maybe you just learned the heavy-day workout from hell, and that's just one workout you learn, and that becomes a fallback workout. By the way, that workout is great before a cheat meal, Thanksgiving meal, because again, it will absolutely deplete your muscle glycogen. And just one of my go-to, like, for that, one of my favorite workouts here is I'll do 20 minutes heavy bag, 20 minutes sled, 20 minutes pool. So it doesn't have to be the only thing you do. And again, they're all follow along. They're progressive. You can take individual drills and use them to make your own circuit. One of my favorite heavy bag routines is I hit the bag, I do a push-up variation, and I go like that for 20 minutes. And it's one of the best upper body workouts of your life, bro. Like the chest pump you get towards the end of that, like hitting the bag with combinations, then hitting like 10 perfect push-ups. And you could be the same push-up, or you could switch the push-up up from round to round. It's just fun. Like and you're getting such a good blend of strength and conditioning. And it makes you feel like a man. For the men listening in this low testosterone, no testosterone epidemic, let's get some blood to that dick. Let's get some blood to that dick.